So welcome. My name is Jonathan Clark, and I am the Youth Services Consultant for the Vermont Department of Libraries. Jennifer is also here from the Department of Libraries. Josh is also with us, who's helping with tech today. So we welcome you all. And we are so excited for the Vermont Golden Dome Book Award virtual conference. And the Vermont Golden Dome Book Award, formerly the Dorothy Canfield Fisher Book Award, is created to honor excellence in children's literature. And each year since 1957, Vermont students in grades 4 through 8 have selected their favorite book from a list of nominees. We have a new name, a new logo, which we're excited about. And as you can see, that was a process that was done through that students submitted names, and the winning name came from Dothan Brooks School in White River Junction, and then was voted on by students around the state. So we're really excited to present our first Golden Dome Book Award, but not our first book award for middle grade. So we are really excited. We have a lot of great things that presentation. The committee has done fantastic work. So we are going to give them lots of time to present today. So this is the agenda. They're going to introduce the 2021-22 list. And this year, it is 25 nominees rather than 30. And so they will introduce that, and then they will do the B list, which are ones that are beloved but didn't quite make the list. And then at 11:50, we're going to take a brief break. And then at 12 o'clock to 1 p.m., we were really excited to have Dr. Jewel Parker Rhodes give the keynote presentation. It's going to be really fantastic, so we hope you stick around for that. Just some quick things, some notes before we begin. The voting deadline for students is May 28th. And discounted books through Norwich Bookstore available for the books on the nominee list. And book award labels. We have received the new labels with the Golden Dome and for the other book awards. And Jennifer has been working furiously to make that all happen. So we'll share the form and they'll be available next week to begin ordering them. So that's exciting.
So I think I'll call Ziggy's.
If you can make sure you get it. Thank you.
I like Ziggy's.
Okay, so we're going to turn it over to the committee that has worked so hard to put together the list, and we're really excited to hear from them. So our book committee members are Kate Belush, Katie Bosley, Charlie Farrell, Erin Neckers, Rebecca Rupp, Sasha Krazik, Nicole Westbaum, and Lori Williams. And with that, I will turn it over to the committee and Rebecca Rupp to go through the list.
Oh, no. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So let's just hit it with the new books. Our first selections are all versions of Narrow Escapes. So Erin, take it away with the Flash Flood at the Canyon's Edge.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about The Canyon's Edge by Dusty Bowling. And it's the 1-year anniversary of Nora's mother's untimely death, tragic death. And her father decide to try and return to normal by going and doing something that they used to do, which was going hiking and going exploring down in canyons. So they go to the Arizona desert and they're in a canyon and a flash flood comes suddenly, obviously flash flood, right? And takes the father and all the supplies away. and where Nora is left stranded. And the book starts off in prose, but then as soon as Nora is by herself, it turns to verse, and her thoughts and her fears and her anxieties are all told in verse. And it's her trying to survive in the desert and find her father, and also dealing with the untimely death of her mother, the tragic death of her mother, and the PSTs that comes from that. It's action-packed, and although it's about 300 pages long, it goes by very quickly as we are on this journey with Nora, trying to see if she's going to survive the elements of the harsh Arizona desert, and also deal with the trauma from her mother dying.
So that was a wow of a book. But wait till you get to all 13, which probably wins the prize for most claustrophobic read of the year. Sasha.
All right, so you may remember a few years back, there was a story in the national news about a group of boys soccer players in Thailand who get stuck in a cave. And I remember hearing they got stuck and they got rescued, but I didn't know any of the details in between. So all 13 goes into great detail about how the boys got stuck and the Herculean efforts that people on the outside went through to get them out. I'm not usually a nonfiction reader, but this book sucked me in from the very first page. I was absolutely captured. So like I said, it tells the story of the 12 players of the Wild Boar soccer team and their coach, who decided to go for a quick hike after their practice. And this turns out to be a very, very, very bad idea. So while they're exploring, the team doesn't realize that it's begun raining outside, and that the pathways in the cave that they're in have begun to flood. So, and become impassable. The team has nowhere to go when they learn that they can't get out except deep, deep back into the cave. They spend 18 terrifying days underground while teams of experts try to get them out. I have a very short passage I'm going to read where the boys and the coach find out that they're stuck. Coach, come see. There's water here. Coach squeezes past the others to the front of the line. Hey, are we lost? One of the boys behind him asked. Did we take a wrong turn? No, Coach assures them. We can't be lost. There's only one way out, for sure. The boys point to the source of their confusion. They should be approaching Sam Yek, the three-way junction, but now there's a pool of swirling water that wasn't there before. The water completely blocks the way forward. The passage they came through is somewhere under the turbulent water, but they can't see it. Tham Luang is flooding. So if that doesn't get you wrapped in, I don't know what will. This book has gorgeous photography. I will say it kind of looks like a coffee table book. It's very thick, so that might turn off some readers, but I think if you give a good book talk, you can get kids to want to take this home and give it a chance. I think they won't regret it at all.
And for the rest of their lives, they will not put the blanket over their head because you don't want to be trapped after reading this book.
Not at all.
I'm not a big nonfiction reader either, but the minute I opened that book, I was hooked and I didn't stop reading the whole day. I finished the book. It has a lot of pictures. It's not as long as it seems.
I agree.
But it's a gasper.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and now for a completely different kind of narrow escape, Chance by Yuri Schulev. Nicole.
So Chance is written and illustrated by Yuri Schulev. It is his account from the age of 4 to 14 of his escape from World War II, from Poland in World War II. And his journey with his parents and all of the different places he lived as a refugee. It is an immersive story. It reads and it has very short chapters, so you just get like one story at a time. So even somebody who doesn't necessarily like autobiographies is going to enjoy. And it's illustrated throughout in different styles that he experimented with as a child. So it's got kind of a little bit of everything in it. It's definitely the book for somebody who's looking for something historical, somebody who's looking for something that's a little bit different than a lot of the other fiction things that we're presenting on this list. And it's, you know, it's kind of a rare first person account that I feel like children, middle grade readers will really enjoy.
Okay. Next slide. We're not from here.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, when stars are scattered.
Yes, when stars are scattered. So Victoria Jameson and Omar Mohammed. So we all love graphic novels. Our kids love graphic novels, but this one has substance and how and wow. It's the true story of Omar Mohammed and his brother Hassan, who grew up, who spent 10 years in a refugee camp before they got resettled to the United States. And even though he's a child in this refugee camp, thousands of miles away, you know, experiencing these things, many, not all, many of our readers can't even fathom. He's such a relatable character that kids are going to want to know more about refugee experiences, about the refugee crisis, about refugee resettlement. I think it's a real perspective builder in that way. But even for me, more importantly, I'm hoping that some of our readers will now maybe look around their own classrooms, their own communities, and have open their eyes, empathy, that some of their peers, some of their classmates have had some of these experiences, their own resettlement experiences. And so it's a graphic novel, but it's also a perspective builder. It is powerful and wonderful.
Land of Cranes. That's yours, Kate. Go.
It helps to turn off the mute. So my short blurb is: undocumented family from Mexico seeks refuge in U.S., but there is no safety or stability here. So this novel probably affected me more than any other book that I read this year because it was so timely with the immigration and deportation crisis happening in the southern U.S. This book pulled at my heartstrings in a way that the TV and the newspapers couldn't do. I was so invested in this book. So it's written in verse, so it reads really quickly, beautiful poetry. So it's a family from Mexico who left to come to the United States for safety. They're living on the border in LA. Dad gets picked up by ICE officers and sent back to Mexico, and his wife, who's pregnant, and daughter are left here in the US. They too get picked up into a, what is it called? A family detention center. And so most of it centers around this family detention center and the cruel and inhumane practices that are happening. And we know they're true. So it's not just a fiction novel. But it was really hopeful at the same time. There was so much beauty in the novel, and as a former teacher and now working in a library, it's a book that families should read together to help them understand what's going on and maybe take action in whatever way they can to ameliorate this situation. So I loved it.
It's also a real pitch for the power of poetry, which I thought was impressive. How about Prairie Lotus?
Prairie Lotus by Linda Sue Park. Set in the 1880s, this book for me was this beautiful and brilliant counterbalance to the Little House books of my youth. It's got, you know, the voice and perspective of a heroine, Hannah Edmonds, who to me is every bit or even more embraceable and memorable as Laura Ingalls was to me again when I was so much younger. She's half Asian, Hannah is half Asian, and she and her white father are coming from Los Angeles. They're coming east. They're going to settle in South Dakota on the prairie. And they want to leave Los Angeles because of the tragedy that happened there. Race riots, things like that, that cost her mother her life, her mother who is Asian, her life. But of course, racism follows them to the prairie as well. And there's the connection. It's still here now, right? But she uses her smarts, her intelligence, and some incredible seamstressing talents from her mother and some words of wisdom from her mother to help her and her father build a new life. You know, from my youth, and maybe I wish I could see a show of hands, you know, I remember Laura Ingalls and Nancy Drew, and of course, let's see, the witch from Blackbird Pond, right? But I'm hoping years from now, our readers will remember Hannah Edmonds, the heroine of this book, as fondly as I remember those. They should. Great book, amazing heroine to talk about and have great conversations about, connecting what happened then to what's happening now.
Absolutely. Okay, what's up next? Who am I? Who am I? King and the Dragonflies. Kate?
That's me again. So my short blurb, close-knit Louisiana family in mourning after sudden death of eldest son. Brother left to cope, ponder friendships, his sexual identity, and how to grow up in a cloud of toxic masculinity. So if you've never read a book by Case and Callender, you're in for a treat, because everything they write is so beautiful. And the topics are hard, you know, toxic masculinity, LGBTQ issues, loss, grief, but the family in this story had so much love, but, you know, they were in grief. Older brother dies unexpectedly, family's left to cope with it. Younger son is friends with a boy who thinks he might be gay. Brother had said, oh, don't hang out with this kid, you know, you don't want to be labeled as being gay. And so he's left after his death, not knowing what to do with his friend and his own feelings. His friend runs away, and they reignite their friendship and discover some things about themselves that I can't tell you because that would ruin the book. But I wouldn't miss this book. I would read anything by Case and Callender, so don't miss this book. Did I miss anything?
No, that was great. National Book Award winner, you notice.
Beautiful.
Okay, Lori, Birdie, and me. And we even mentioned Dead Mother, right?
Well, yeah, I do, but, all right. So this is a story of Jack and her younger brother, Birdie. And it's a story about building a family, a wonderful, hopeful story about building a family. And what I love the most about it is that, yes, there is the mother who has died. Okay, and yes, there is bullying. Birdie's a gender bending, he's got a gender bending sense of style that gets him bullied at school. Yes, Uncle Carl is a bit unreliable, and yes, Uncle Jack is a clam, as Jack likes to call him, not very showing of what he's thinking or feeling. But you really get a feeling throughout the whole book that even though they're going to stay true to who they are going to first and foremost stay true to each other and figure things out. This book has some laugh out loud, funny parts to it. But what really shined to me was Jack's got a real determination to make sure that her brother gets to be who he wants to be. And she will take on any adult, anybody of any size to make sure that he can be who he wants to be. And she's also going to make sure that they both get answers about what's happened in the past and that they will get the family that they both deserve. She is a spunky one. Loved her and loved Birdie.
Oh, Birdie is fabulous. Loved Birdie. Sarah Pennypackers, Here in the Real World. I just adored this book. It's got a bit of a flavor of Rumer Godden's episode of Sparrows, if you are familiar with that one. One of the main characters is Ware, who has this ultra efficient, organized mother and a sports-loving father. And God knows how he was born into this family. Obviously, it's random chromosome assortment, because Ware is an introvert who only wants to be left alone to read about medieval history. So his concerned parents send him off to summer camp at the local rec center to make capitalized, meaningful social interactions, which is the last thing that Ware wants to do. So immediately he kind of sneaks out of the rec center, goes to the ruined church across the street, where he meets Jolene, who's in the process of planting a papaya plantation on the grounds of the abandoned building. And they join forces. Ware decides that, wow, here's all this crumbling stoneware. I can turn this into my version of a castle. So these two kids basically are building their own versions of the world. Ware is a continual hopeful optimist, and Jolene, who's had a tough background, continually brings him back down to earth by saying, that doesn't happen here in the real world. Here in the real world, there just aren't successes and heroes. But it does turn out that there are successes and heroes, and it's a bit of a tearjerker. It's just a lovely book. Anybody else want to chime in on that one? Yes, you do, right?
It had a little bit of a whiff of Bridge to Terabithia to it, I thought. Just the friendship that's forged and the sort of cadence of the writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie, what about Cobb?
Yeah, Cobb. Cobb is a graphic novel. It is by Cynthia Copeland, and it's semi-autobiographical. So Cynthia appears as Cindy in 19...
Yep. Charlie? Oh, technology. We love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Cobb, just until we get Charlie back, is
70s.
You back, Charlie?
I don't know. Am I back?
Yes, yes, you are. You were frozen. It was terrible. Oh no.
I think he is again.
Can she skip him? Come back to him? Or not?
Yeah, let's move ahead. Cobb is. Let's go to Witches and Demons until we get Charlie's internet back. And who does not love Witches and Demons? Katie, this is all you.
It's all me. I didn't realize I had such a dark component to my recommendations for this list, but I did fight for them. Don't think less of me for having such dark taste in books.
These are wonderful books.
Absolutely. And I get to channel my inner LeVar Burton and talk about them. So Cinders and Sparrows, I would recommend to anyone who fell into a pit of despair the day they finished Harry Potter. If you need your spirits lifted by a book where the opening sentence sort of makes you hear the kind of music that's played on a haunted music box. This story features Zita. It reads like a classic fairy tale. Zita receives word that she's the last living heir to a remote castle and the last in a long line of witches. She makes her way to this remote castle when no one is willing to transport her, and she soon finds that just about everyone who currently inhabits the castle may or may not be out to kill her. So it's not the warm welcome she'd anticipated. She sort of has to learn her way around an ever-changing castle, learn her own abilities, and learn to stand up for herself. So it's a classical story, but much added to by the terrific shiver-inducing writing. The author, Stefan Bachmann, is a dual citizen in Switzerland. He's a self-proclaimed wonderkind, which is maybe the worst kind of wonderkind, and a friend of Christopher Paolini. And you can tune in and listen to the two of them talk high fantasy and get sucked right in. Like another famous Swiss book, Heidi, you'll notice that the character's hair color does not match her description in the book, but do not let that deter you from picking up this terrific read. Snapdragon, I would say best book of the year, an absolute masterpiece. You'll have a newfound crush on creator Kat Lay, and I'm not reading that off the back of the book. It's my personal opinion, but it's 100% mostly all true. Catley is the head writer for Lumberjanes, and she presents us with Snap. Snap really struggles socially. She's considered weird by her classmates, but she does have a superpower, and that's that she notices things. She looks harder at things than most folks. Contrary to her name, she rarely makes snap judgments. And when her beloved and adorable dog goes missing, she sort of summons the courage to approach the local recluse, who's this very intimidating feature in a black trench coat, or character, I should say, and suspected witch. And her name is Jax. And as it turns out, Jax removes her trench coat and is wearing a t-shirt with a cowboy kitten on it that says Meowdy, which sort of tells us a lot about her character. There tends to be more to all of the characters in Snapdragon than there originally seems. This book has romance, it has transgender representation, it's got adorable dogs that don't die, it's got the ghost of a roadkill deer, a John Doe, if you will, who later powers a motorized vehicle, a John Deere, if you will. It really has everything. It's weird and wonderful, flies off library shelves, and not just because I sneak it into kids' backpacks. So definitely take a look at that one. The way back is high fantasy. From the first sentence, you're going to say, oh, literature. It sucks you right in. There are several converging storylines, so this isn't one that you can put down and come back to a week later. You'll have no idea what's going on. It pulls heavily from Jewish folklore, and it's the story of Uma and Yehuda Leib, two kids who are on the run and trying to escape grief, and both who fall into a parallel universe. Where the walls between the worlds grow thin in cemeteries. They're both trying to recover a person that they lost and journey through the land of the dead to do so. You know, when you're reading high fantasy like Tolkien, you sort of get swept up in the cadence of the language, or start thinking in poetry. Well, I wrote to Gabriel Savid to alert him of his winning this award, and I wrote this really emotive email that said, you know, thank you for providing a world dark and deep for this pandemic reader to fall in, or pandemic weary reader to fall into. He wrote that, sure. So I thought, you know, it really was a book that changed the way that you thought for a few days after you read it. Does anyone have anything to add about that one? All of
Am I on again?
You're on again. Wonderful book. You know, it's sort of Fiddler on the Roof's Anatevka with ghosts and demons.
Charlie,
Yeah, Charlie, want to try for Cub?
I will try before I get cut off again. Yeah, so Cub is a graphic novel. It's semi-autobiographical. Cynthia is Cindy in 1970s junior high school. They didn't have middle schools back then. It was a junior high. And her junior high she compared to a TV show called Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. People of a certain age may remember that this always came on Sunday nights. And inevitably you would have the predators and you would have the prey. And that's how she thought of her junior high, that you had a group that were the predators and the other students were all the prey. And the prey kind of did different strategies to try to survive junior high. Some used camouflage, some used forms of distraction. Cindy, well, she did the opossum route, and she kind of played dead. So when the predators were stalking her, she would just kind of ignore them until they went away. That all changed when she was selected to be a cub reporter. So instead of being in the background and playing dead, now she was right at the forefront. And this is a wonderful story about how she gains self-confidence and becomes a full-fledged reporter and grows It is definitely a story of girl power and empowerment. So really loved it. And I made it.
When bad things happen to good people. Fighting words, that's yours, Erin.
Yes. So you're going to meet 10-year-old Della, who is amazing. So she has a really hard story to tell, but she's going to tell you her story, and she starts with the easy parts. And her easy parts, for a lot of us, are hard parts. Her and her older sister have just been placed into a foster home with Francine, who at first you're going to think is a stereotypical, horrible foster parent, but ends up being a true hero to those girls. They are placed in foster care because their mother blew up a hotel room while cooking meth and is now in prison. And they were given to mother's boyfriend, not their father, Clifton. And Clifton, as you find out, is not a good person. But those are the easy things in Della's life. And she begins to tell her story, and you find out more. And it sounds like this is going to be a depressing, horrible read, but it really is not. There is a lot of humor in it. Della has spunk, and her love of curse words, but she instead is being told not to say curse words, so you get a lot of snow. Snow becomes the curse word. And as all of us in April or May that see snow all the time, we know it can be a good curse word to use. Della finds the courage to right some wrongs, whether it be a boy at school that is doing things to other fourth grade girls that are not right, and she finds the courage to stand up, finds the courage to help herself, to help her sister Suki, who is going through a hard time. This book is honest, straightforward, but with a lot of humor and a lot of hope.
And I dare you not to love that foster mother. She is one of my favorite mother figures in any book I've read. She's great.
Completely cool. I love her. Jacqueline Woodson's Before the Ever After. This is a short novel in verse, and I think it's very timely, especially now that we're starting to debate the fact that football may be extremely hazardous to your health. The main character is 12-year-old ZJ, who's named for his larger-than-life football-playing dad, who's clearly been a wonderful father. Part of the story is told in flashbacks. But his father is now suffering from what is clearly chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. So he's deteriorating rapidly. This is a crippling, often lethal neurological condition. There's nothing that can be done for this. And so as ZJ's dad gets worse and worse, his family, and his friends are forced to come to terms with a condition that's not going to get better. They're dealing with their new ever after. And one of the real positive things in this book, though, is the incredible friendship between ZJ and his three best friends. It's a wonderful picture of young boys supporting each other. Great book. I lapped it up. And it's a good discussion book, especially for right now. Anybody else? Yep. Oh, that's Black Brother, Sasha.
All right, so Black Brother is indeed about brothers. Dante and Trey Ellison, they are brothers, but they look absolutely nothing alike. And because of this, it makes life horribly unfair for Dante. The boys come from a biracial family. Trey looks like his dad, who's white, and Dante takes after his mom, who has dark skin. And because Dante has dark skin, he's often mistaken for a scholarship student. They go to a wealthy prep school. And he's also targeted as a troublemaker, and he's continually bullied by both the students at the school and the teachers there. When Dante is blamed for an incident that he had no part of and consequently arrested, he knows he needs to do something to change this situation. His nemesis is a fellow student that goes by the name of King Allen, and King Allen is the captain of the fencing team. So Dante decides that the only way to stand up to Allen is to beat him at his own game, and that he's going to learn how to become a champion fencer. Dante knows absolutely nothing about fencing, and he finds himself a coach who happens to be a former Olympian. And with the help of the new coach and some new friends and his brother, they band together to teach Allen a lesson that he won't soon forget. I'd recommend this book for readers who like things by Kwame Alexander, like Crossover or Rebound, or Alan Reynolds' series, the track series of Ghost and Patina, and those stories. It's short. This book is short. It's fast-paced, and it's full of situations that would lead to great class discussions, or if you read it as a family book, it's really important topics are dealt with. Anybody else have anything to?
And I foresee a real passion for fencing. Everyone will want swords.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
just want to also plug here that Jewel Parker Rhodes is our keynote, and we'll be speaking at 12 today. So please stick around for that, and she will discuss Black Brother, and Ghost Boys, and we got a preview of it, and her presentation is going to be fantastic. So just want to put a plug in for that.
Great.
Wonderful. Okay, next, In Their Shoes. Oh, My Life in the Fish Tank by Barbara D. Well, in this book, Zinni's older brother, Gabriel, has been involved in a horrific car crash. And it turns out that he's just behaved very recklessly. He's been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and sent to a rehabilitation clinic for treatment. And this diagnosis affects the entire family, who all react to it in different ways. Zinni pulls back from her friends. She just dissociates herself from potential support. The mother just wants to keep the whole thing quiet. Don't talk about it. This is private. We don't share. So there's a lot of struggle in the family in coming to terms with what's basically their new ever after. Zinni eventually comes to terms with a lot of things with help from some unexpected quarters, like the school guidance counselor, who is completely cool and runs a lunchtime group for kids that have things they need to talk about, and from her science teacher. Zinni's a marine biology nut, and you learn a great deal about crayfish in this book, as well as about bipolar disorder. So I thought it was a sensitive, a realistic, and a very hopeful account of a family dealing with the onset of and recognition of mental illness. And I think it's a topic that's not covered enough in literature for this age group. So I thought this one was a real plus. How about Things Seen from Above?
All right, Things Seen from Above features April. And April is a 6th grader who is really tired of the trauma and the drama of her 6th grade lunch. So to escape lunch, what she does is she volunteers to be a bench buddy at the 4th grade recess. And instead of going to lunch, she can go out and sit on the bench and interact with the 4th graders. So most of the time she's making friendship bracelets with fourth grade girls. But as she's doing that, she notices this one. His name is Joey Bird, and he is a rare bird indeed. Sometimes he just simply lies in the middle of the playground and stares up at the sky. All the other kids are running around doing, tag and games, and he just lies there. And then there are other days where his behavior is, well, rather strange. He starts by dragging his feet through the bark mulch, and then he'll like pirouette and hop and dance and drag his feet some more. And then he'll stop and just kind of look at the sky. And April, well, she's intrigued. She wants to know what he's all about. And at first she just thinks he's doing some kind of strange dance. But then her perspective changes and she realizes what Joey is really doing. And that's what this book is about. It's about perspective and seeing things and seeing people from different points of view, different levels. And by doing so, she found out Joey's secret, and soon his secret talent isn't so secret, and everyone's lives change because of it. So it's a wonderful book. Yeah, I loved it. Anyone else have anything?
Yeah, if any of you have seen Simon Beck, the artist who makes these incredible patterns in the snow.
Oh, you're giving it away.
Sorry.
Giving his talent away.
We will move on to Trowbridge Road.
I was so careful to keep the secret.
Charlie, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I'm trying not to give away secrets. So this was my first Marcella Pixley book. I know she's written some for YA, but it becomes clear when I look back at the books that I brought to the group that I am first captured by the writing, and then the story comes along. So the little blurb is, two lost souls find one another in the midst of family drama or trauma. Loving adults and fantasy world provides stability. So I want to share with you how I was hooked to this book, which is just the very first sentence. It was clear that the summer was about to change as soon as Jenny Carlo's rusty old Chevy came clattering down Trowbridge Road at 2:15, the radio pounding heavy metal into the neighborhood, shattering the lazy Thursday afternoon like a rock through a dusty window. That was it for me. So that hooked me into Ziggy and Junebug, two youngsters who were experiencing different problems. Junebug's father had died from AIDS, and this is set right at the onset of the AIDS crisis. So, it wasn't talked about, wasn't much in the news. So the father dies from AIDS, family falls apart, the mother takes a deep dive with some mental health issues, and Junebug is left kind of to fend for herself, but not exactly. And then on the other hand, there's Ziggy, who has a loving mother who just can't keep it together, drops him off with his grandmother, and so he's kind of fending for himself with those abandonment issues and bullying from his past school. He's a little quirky, but I like quirky people. Anyway, so both of these kids end up on the same block. They both have really loving other people in their lives, which I think saves them. And they find each other and create this fantasy world, this ninth dimension that helps them deal with what's going on in their lives. So I guess what I really want to say is it's not a sad book. There's so much love, but it's not tidy. It's, and it's not coming from the people who you might think the love should be coming from your nuclear family. Well, there's a lot of that too. But anyway, what did I miss here? I just loved it. It was beautiful writing. I was affected, and I loved the quirky characters and the weasel and the ninth dimension. It was just really magical.
If you'd like me to break in and tell you the end.
No. Moving on. Move on.
All right, Cancer, square dancing and farts. Who's got wink?
I've got wink. Yep. Oh my goodness. If I could hand you one book to read aloud to your sixth graders, this would be it. I basically read it aloud to myself because it's written in a completely conversational tone. The author, Rob Harrell, is a well-known comic artist, and he, the way that he writes, it's almost as though it's written in speech bubbles. He introduces us to Ross Malloy, who is facing a rare form of cancer that Rob Harrell himself actually faced. I looked up the diagnosis after reading this book, and it has a very low survival rate, which is really scary. Originally, he had thought he would write this book for adults, and he had a change of heart when a family friend of his who was in middle school experienced cancer and had some strange reactions from her friends. Some of her friends didn't know how to talk to her anymore and sort of just fell off the map, and it sort of gave him this idea to you know, tell his story through the eyes of a middle school kid. So Ross has been diagnosed with a scary rare form of eye cancer. His treatment involves a medically prescribed cowboy hat to protect his vision, and eye drops that have to be used frequently and that leave him looking sort of like a goopy-eyed cowboy. Not only is he trying to navigate surviving this scary cancer, but he also is trying to navigate middle school. Flying under the radar is really not an option when you are a goopy-eyed cowboy. And he decides that he's going to really rely on humor and friends and a newfound love of music to get him through this difficult space. So he, through his very musical, heavy metal loving radiation tech, he finds a new form of music. He picks up the guitar and, of course, in maybe an unlikely span of time, learns to master it in time for the school talent show. Like I said, this is a really terrific read aloud if you like funny books. At one point in his process of dealing with his diagnosis, he sings a really angry version of The Sound of Silence, which I think you need to commit to when reading this to your class. And it's just a really winning story of a kid who finds people to rely on that you might not expect. It's a overall very humorous book, and it's interspersed with Ross's comic creation Bat Pig, who is originally incarnated as Bat Butt, but at the suggestion of his school principal, he alters his comic to Bat Pig, who is equally winning and helps us understand how he's dealing with his diagnosis. Anyone have anything to add?
That is the coolest radiation technologist in the world. So true. What a character.
I can't keep it on the shelf at my library, so it's just very popular. Kids are talking about it and getting it in each other's hands.
Okay, Lupe Wong, for all of us who were made to square dance in middle school.
Yeah. Let me tell you about Lupe Wong. This is another one that I could see being a really good read aloud to a classroom of even younger kids. Lupe Wong is half Mexican and half Chinese, and she is a star athlete. She is beloved by her co-ed baseball team. Gym has never been a problem for Lupe Wong. Her other academic subjects, not so much. So her uncle bribes her to meet her hero, a professional baseball player who's half Mexican and half Chinese like her. But she has to get straight A's. So she works really hard, and at the beginning of the book, she's getting straight A's, and they're just about to introduce the last unit in gym class, which is square dancing. And Lupe hates square dancing. It's awkward, it's sweaty, she doesn't get it, she hates it. And so she tries everything in her power to get the unit canceled. And she tries activism, she tries gender issues, but along the way, she learns a lot about like reasons people might enjoy square dancing, and to some people, and that maybe there are other types of dancing that are culturally important to other people that can be included in a larger representation of the school population. And so Lupe is a character you'll absolutely love. This book could be included in both the square dancing and farts category, because she's known for sticking it to her enemies by crop dusting them with a silent but deadly fart. She's got an incredibly hilarious, endearing voice, and her grandparents on both sides of the family are just the best grandparents. They're very well written.
Does anybody have the book and can read the first sentence?
Oh, I don't.
Oh man,
No.
I don't have it with me.
The first sentence, the best. So just keep that in mind.
Now we have to find it immediately.
Something to do with a wedgie, I believe.
Yes, Prairie Lotus.
I think
Okay,
most blurbs give it as like a part of their descriptions.
How about Ben B and the Teacher Griefer?
Okay, so Ben being the teacher griefer, I think kids are absolutely going to love this book. It's written in a format that they won't consider normal. It's written in verse, and also each chapter is told by a different student. There's 4 students at all. So they each have their own style, either poetry, a sort of stream of consciousness, or drawing. One boy doesn't like to write, so he draws. This book tells the story of 4 students who are required to attend a remedial summer program for kids who have failed the Florida rigorous academic assessment test. In Vermont, we have the SBACs. In Florida, they have this test, what the kids have, of course, renamed the farts. All 4 kids, for various reasons, absolutely hate reading aloud. One student so much that she tries to flush her book down the toilet. And as you can imagine, that doesn't go very well at all. Their teacher, who they all love, her name is Ms. J. She ensures that the kids in her class know that they are smart, divergent thinkers, and she tries to meet them where they're at. And she makes a deal with them that if they complete their daily read aloud, she will allow them time to play their favorite video game, which is called Sandbox, which is basically what we know as Minecraft. So this goes really well for the kids and the teachers until the school administration gets wind of what's going on, and her teaching practices get called out. Ben, who's Ben Bellows, who's the main character in the book, he and his friends decide that they have to work together to try to save Mrs. J's job, so that they'll be able to pass the test. They want her to be able to teach again, but also they have their own selves to think about, that they really need to pass this test. This book is funny, and it's perfect for divergent thinkers and their neurotypical peers. I have a quick quote that says, "About 1 million times a day, Ms. J reminds us, you're the smartest kids in the school. You are divergent thinkers. Divergent thinkers change the world." So if kids like books like Fish in a Bottle or Save Me a Seat, this would be another one that would be perfect for them. It's fast paced, it's funny, and I think that they would really enjoy it. Does anybody have anything else to add?
It seems like it really flew under the radar attention-wise, and I just am so glad that it was nominated, because it's such a terrific book, and once kids get a hold of it, they can't put it down.
Yeah,
And it's also
clever.
I was just going to say, it's also the first book in a series, so there's another one coming out soon.
Oh, great. Okay, tigers, lots of money, and scary plants. Tigers.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay? There was a little thing about my audio. Is my audio seeing me okay now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So, When You Trap a Tiger is an Asian American voice. Tay Keller brings her Korean heritage to us. She tells us about Lily, who's half Korean, And Lily is moving to live with her grandmother, to spend more time with her grandmother, with her mother and her sister. And on the way driving there, she sees a giant tiger in the middle of the road, just a big, bright orange tiger in the middle of this rainstorm. Nobody else sees this tiger. She can't understand why her mom and her sister aren't reacting to this tiger. And so she kind of brushes it off as maybe she was seeing things until the tiger appears to her again and starts speaking to her. And that's not the only strange thing that's happening. Lily's Helmani, her grandmother, has been acting really eccentrically from day to day, like very unpredictably. And the tiger, when it comes to speak to her, implies that maybe it's some sort of a curse, and maybe it's a result of how, maybe the tiger could cure the curse, but Lily has to retrieve something that her Helmani has stolen. Her Helmani has stolen the tiger's stories. And so Lily has to try to figure out how much of what should she believe the tiger. And the tiger is the trickster in all the stories she's been told throughout her childhood. So she has to decide, like, what does this tiger mean? What does her grandmother's behavior mean? It's interwoven with Korean folklore. There's some discussion of racism against, a mild amount of discussion of racism against Asian Americans. Her grandmother's the only Asian American in a very white place, and she's kind of, in some ways, treated as almost like the town witch because of her strange behavior. A very touching read and very beautifully woven.
How about Millionaires for the month?
Okay, so as you may or may not be able to see at the bottom of the cover, it does say, how do you spend $5 million in a month? And that's the challenge that the two main characters, Felix and Benji, find themselves in. It sounds like it's an easy challenge, but of course, nothing is really easy, right? So Benji and Felix are on a field trip and they find a wallet. And it turns out to be the wallet of a billionaire, Laura Friendly, who's kind of like the Mark Zuckerberg, right? She came up with a social media website and made billions of dollars. And Benji is hungry. He forgot his lunch. So he sees that there's $20 in the wallet, decides to go buy himself some hot dog ice cream. And they'll return the wallet and they're hoping for a big reward. Well, they do get a reward. They get offered some scholarship money, but Laura Friendly knows they stole the $20. Benji's not too happy with the reward they got. So Laura Friendly wants to teach them that even a penny has value. Everything has value. $20 has value to a billionaire. So she offers this challenge of spending $5,368,709.12 in a month. But there's strings attached. They can't buy real estate. They can't give the money away. They can't buy jewelry or art. They have to use everything. They have to not tell people about the challenge. So Benji and Felix accept, because if they spend this money, they get to keep $10 million. And so what happens is they are trying to spend money and people don't understand why they're spending, the parents especially, because they're not allowed to tell their parents they can't, about this challenge, about why they're spending this money recklessly, why they're not helping out with, Felix's family is struggling, and why can't he help out with buying a house or paying some of the bills or helping his mom go back to college. And so it's a fun read. It deals with friendship and privilege and perspective about money, and it's a very entertaining read.
Kids love this book.
Yeah, you look at it and you think, well, of course, I could spend $5 million in 30 days. It's tricky.
Yeah.
Charlie, I promise not to say one word. Bloom.
So Bloom by Kenneth Opel. Kenneth Opel, an incredible writer. He made me relate to bats. He made me fall in love with an ink blot. And now he's made me fear houseplants. we start in British Columbia with 3 teenagers, Anea, Petra, and Seth. And they don't really hang out together that much. In fact, they don't have a lot in common, except that each of them has really severe allergies. Petra is actually allergic to water. She breaks out if a drop of rain falls on her. This all changes when the rain comes. It's a strange rain that seems to fall across the whole world. And when the rain ends, the plants arrive. And these plants are not your normal plants. First, we find the vines, these black, sinuous vines that grow at an incredible rate. And they start engulfing houses and trees and anything that's in their way. And then we start having the bloom, and the pollen is released. And the pollen is toxic to humans, except for our 3 main characters that seem to be immune to the pollen's effects. But then it gets worse, because the plants they start feeding on humans, and it really takes a dark turn. So I think I have a situation here, but the 3 characters are thrown into this situation where they have to try to rescue Anya's dad from a remote island. He's trapped there by these deadly plants. And through all of this, they suddenly realize that they might have some kind of mysterious connection to this bloom of invasive plants. So they're trying to solve the mystery and trying to survive. It is an action-packed book. I think it's going to be a trilogy. I think maybe the second one might be out already. But it is a fast-moving, fast-paced action, and you'll never look at your houseplants in the same way.
Escape, Charlie. Escape.
Escape. Back. No more Miracle Grow for you.
Okay, guys, that is the end of the A list, this year's list. So we only ran over by 7 minutes, but this still means that we have a very truncated period of time in which to go through the B list. So, we're talking two quick sentences, if we can manage that. We actually...
Katie, do you want
it? Absolutely. Give me just a moment.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we always have a great time with the B list, because the B list is when actually we can all point out to each other how short-sighted we've been in not appreciating these books that one or the other of us really thought should be on the list. It's really painful chipping down so many wonderful books to just 25. Okay. Trains, battleships, and submarines.
All right, The Silver Arrow by Lev Grossman. So The Silver Arrow is obviously a train. It's a magical train, a magical steed train. Who doesn't love a magical train ride? We all could use one right about now. But this train is filled with talking animals, and it's fitted out with just the best cars you can imagine. In fact, Kate, they get to pick the cars that are on this train. They end up with a library car and a candy car. So along with the talking animals, this is a pretty fabulous train. So Kate gets this for her birthday from her rich uncle, and she and her brother go off on this fantastical journey. And there's a very real environmental message in it, and it's also a hopeful call to action. And I think the reason it didn't make the list is because some of the committee members felt it was too in your face with the call to action. I kind of think that's a good idea sometimes, especially for our younger readers who this book will appeal to.
Yep. On the Horizon?
On the Horizon by Lois Lowry. Lois Lowry was inspired to write this book when she was reviewing some old movies that her dad had taken when she was a very young girl. She was 4 years old, and he was taking these movies on a Hawaiian beach. And as she's playing on this beach in Hawaii, on the horizon, there is the USS Arizona. And she just felt chills when she saw this image on her movie screen. It's a book that is reflections of World War II. She writes a lot about the some of the sailors that were on the USS Arizona, and then she switches and writes about Hiroshima and the bombing of that city. And in later life, she befriends a survivor of that bombing. So it's all kind of reflections of World War II. It really is a great historical book. It's written in free verse, which is kind of a departure for Lois Lowry, but a wonderful short book.
And gripping. You know,
Gripping.
just the image of this little kid on the beach, and there's the Arizona heading toward Pearl Harbor. Wow. So the train, the battleship, the submarine is from Mary Underwater by Shannon Dulesky. Mary is one cool kid. Her abusive father is home from prison. Her mother has just gone completely apathetic, isn't dealing with him at all. Mary is in a really threatening home situation, and she's suffering from this. You know, her grades are plummeting. She's under all kinds of traumatic stress. So she decides what she's going to do. This is a resourceful kid, that she is going to save her failing science grade by building a submarine and taking it across Chesapeake Bay. I mean, who wouldn't? So she gets support from an unexpected classmate, from an ex-Navy submersible scientist. And no, I'm not going to tell you the end, but it's a great book. I loved Mary Underwater.
I'll tell the end.
No, you can't tell the end. What's next? In the Woods.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go.
Beautiful. Two very different woods. Echo Mountain. Both Sasha and Kate signed up for this one. Share?
Sure, Kate,
Yeah,
you can
do you
go.
want to start or do you want me to start?
Kate, you can start.
Okay. So my two sentences: Great Depression hits, family loses everything and moves to the woods. Tragedy strikes again and the daughter looks to the mountain and members of the mountain community for help and support. So this was one of the first books I read this past year. It was beautiful. Okay, you know I'm drawn to beautiful books. And I think what struck me the most about this book was the writing about nature. And if you like books that have a really close connection with the natural world and the beauty of it and how it evokes feelings in you, you will love this book. What else should we say about it, Sasha?
I guess if they've read any other of Lauren Wolk's books, it's very similar writing style. If they enjoyed that, I think they'll enjoy this as well. There's a nice sort of intergenerational story between the main character and an older woman that they find kind of living a recluse, and it's just a great story. I mean, no, that's not the best description, but.
And it's set in the Maine woods.
Yes. We don't get many books in the Maine woods.
I have a quick note. I have a quick interjection. So I have a signed copy of Echo Mountain that I'm going to be raffling off. So when you get your email after the conference today, you'll find some forms in there and you'll have a chance to enter to win a signed copy of Echo Mountain.
All right.
have a chance to, or a signed copy of We Dream of Space by Erin Entrada Kelly. This book isn't on the A-list or the B-list, but we love her, so that's good. Okay, that's it.
Okay, fantastic, Jennifer. All right, Whispering Pines, a very different.
Okay, Whispering Pines is another dose of creepiness. So after the mysterious disappearance of Ray's father, her grieving mom decides the family needs a fresh start and moves the trio to Whispering Pines, Connecticut. She's unaware of the town's reputation for being unusually creepy, that is. Soon after Ray's arrival, she meets her neighbor and fellow classmate, Caden, a boy who's often teased because of his family's unconventional business. They're ghost hunters. The creep factor starts to rise when Ray and Caden's classmates start disappearing one by one, and Ray starts seeing strange happenings in the watchful woods near her home. The two join forces to discover what is really happening in the Whispering Pines. So I know at my library all the time kids are coming in and asking for scary books. So if kids come into your library and want a scary book, this is one to hand to them. Fans of the TV series Stranger Things will automatically be drawn to this. They'll be hooked in the first few pages. It has zombies, monsters, and things that go bump in the night. This first in the series has got it all. It's a perfect companion to read aloud with Bloom for a double dose of darkness.
It scared me.
It's creepy.
Yeah.
Coming to America. Everything sad is untrue. Nicole.
Yeah. Yeah, everything sad is untrue is the account of the author, a fictional account of his experience. It is about a Persian immigrant living in Oklahoma in post-Desert Storm, but pre-9/11 America, so it's set in the 90s. And it is an account of his time in Oklahoma, interwoven with stories about his time before he immigrated to Oklahoma. It's definitely older on our audience level, and I think that was part of the reason that we didn't end up choosing it. But older and more mature readers will enjoy it, but also it's got a lot of talk about poop. So it's got a balance of talking about poop and talking about just stories like, real experiences of living in a place where, like, his classmates are kind of confused because there's a fair amount of prejudice against the Middle East at that time, and nobody really understands that he's not at all associated with some of the stuff we're fighting around that time. Just thought it was a really, I think 13-year-old boys and girls would really enjoy this book.
I mean, this has been acclaimed. It's had wonderful reviews all over the place. Yeah. It's talked about as a book that exemplifies love of storytelling. This kid is a Shahrazad with a few poop jokes.
The best kind.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Santiago's Road Home. Lori.
Yeah, so the committee, there were 3 really powerful border stories this year. Land of Cranes, which got chosen for the list, Santiago's Road Home, and also Ephraim Divided. Santiago's Road Home is the story of a 12-year-old orphan who doesn't want to go back to his abusive grandmother, so he decides to cross the border. He links up with a young mother and her young daughter, and they try to head across the desert. It doesn't go well. They end up in a detention center. And, there have been a lot of books in the past about border crossings and trying to cross the border. This one, along with Land of the Cranes, really focuses on the awfulness, the bleakness, the uncaringness of detention centers and the bureaucracy of trying to get out of there and the fear for the future that all builds. Timely book about a brave kid. I think we went with Land of Cranes because of the female protagonist. Also, it's celebration of poetry and even feeling more real than this one did, but this was a great story too.
Absolutely. What's up next? Moving along. Oh, what happens at school? Oh, okay, Glitch.
Glitch by Laura Martin. I confess that I'm a big science fiction nerd, and when it comes to time travel, I just love it. And that's what Glitch is. It's a book about an academy, Glitch Academy, in which the students are training to be time travelers. Time travelers with a mission, because there are another group of time travelers called butterflies. And butterflies want to change history, whereas the students from Glitch, they're there to prevent that from happening. So at the very beginning of the book, we find one of the students, and her name was Regan. Regan is she's trying to prevent someone from interfering with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And she does find the butterfly, but just a tad too late. So she returns to Glitch Academy through the time travel, and is very embarrassed that she did not make it. Especially embarrassed because Elliot, her rival at the academy, is there to give her grief. And he continues to give her grief as they're walking back to the dorms. And that's when they find a mysterious envelope. And the envelope, or the letter in the envelope, is to Regan, from her future self. And her future self is giving her a dire warning. She is telling her present self that there is danger ahead, and that she will have to work with Elliot in order to save the academy and save history as we know it. This is an action-packed book. I couldn't put it down. Anyone else? No?
It was a wow.
Yeah.
I love time travel.
Yeah.
And here we're going from Glitch Academy and time travel to Idaho with My Life as a Potato.
Yes, so this is an easy breezy read. This was just a fun read, flat out fun read, and that's what the feedback I'm getting from kids too. So Ben Hardy, who doesn't even like potatoes, he's just moved to Idaho, so they're Potato Central. And the school's mascot is even known as Steve the Spud. Well, there's an unfortunate mishap, and Ben is the new guy, is recruited to don the Spud costume and impersonate a giant potato. And this mascot carries quite a bit of weight at the school. It's part of an integral part of the success of the basketball team. So this is actually a pretty high pressure job. And he does his very best at it. This isn't a case where this kid is snarky. He doesn't think he deserves this. No, this kid embraces it and he tries to do it, except he doesn't want anybody to know it's him. And it's really important because he's got a crush on somebody named Jayla, and he really doesn't want her to know it's him that's doing all this crazy stuff at basketball games, getting the crowds all fired up and all that kind of stuff. So it's a great story, easy read, even a potato-based food fight at the end. So that sort of gives it away, but who wins the food fight, right? You don't know yet.
Well, who wins? Dress coded.
So when the 8th grade camping trip, Couchman, because an 8th grade girl violated the dress code for wearing a tank top to school, the main character, Molly, starts a podcast where girls can tell their stories of what happens when either Dr. Couchman or another adult in the school called Fingertip. I don't think we find out what her name is, but Fingertip, because you have to measure how long the skirts and the shorts are based on the fingertips. And what happens to these girls when they are humiliated by the principal and Fingertip was a dress code based on one girl wearing the same outfit as another, but one gets dress coded because of her body type. So Molly, with her podcast, ends up kind of starting a rebellion and a mini revolution as the 8th graders start realizing that this dress code is unfair at school. And that's, anybody else?
Yeah. I thought that was great. Nicole, this is an older version of our B list. So right in here in the newer version, we had put in Your Beloved Go With the Flow. We don't have a picture of
which
it.
Definitely has a little bit of an overlap. Yeah.
Definitely. So want to
Yeah.
take that?
I really, yeah, I'll talk about that for a minute. Go With the Flow is a graphic novel, and it's a graphic novel about periods. It's a graphic novel about friends, and they're sophomores, so you might think it was a slightly older book, but I've had 11 and 12-year-old boys just like read this and then tell me how much they learned from it. I feel like it's a really great tool for empathy surrounding like the struggles that everybody who has a period has struggles, and some are very painful, and empathy and destigmatizing talking about periods. And so I really wanted to talk about and hope to get this into the hands of lots of librarians and hopefully lots of middle grade boys and girls. And I feel like anybody could learn from this book.
Yeah,
I was going to say at the Fletcher Free Library, we have these book bundles, and I stick it into the book bundles all the time. And whether it's for, a female patron or a male patron, and I always hope that it gets into some boys' hands and they read it.
Yep. I've heard a lot of feedback from 11 and 12-year-old parents of 11 and 12-year-old boys that this is a favorite book that their 11 or 12-year-old boy read multiple times in the week that they had it. They would look over and see that they were reading it again. And not a bad thing.
And it just has such authentic friendships too. I feel like the relationship of these four girls really just sucks you in.
Absolutely. They're really looking out for each other.
Well, The Assignment by Liza Weimer, which I could not talk the committee into accepting, is based on.
We really went back and forth about this one.
Yeah, we did. It's an interesting book. It's for older readers. I'd say the 7th and 8th grade end of our audience scale. Based on a true story. The idea is that a much beloved and charismatic history teacher has assigned the class to reenact the Wannsee Conference, in which the Nazi administration came up with decisions for the Jewish final solution. So he wants the kids to take the various parts of persons at the conference. So kids ended up defending the idea of the final solution, which of course was horrific. And the kids protested this. There was one kid in particular, Cade, whose grandparents were Holocaust survivors. And he had firsthand experience of how dreadful this was in Poland. And the whole thing escalates. The kids protest. They're very active. And it, all right. It ends up with they're empowered. No, I can't.
I think a lot of what we went back and forth on is like whether or not the teacher was written in a realistic way. Like it was
Yeah, it's an interesting book. There's some real discussion in here. And when do you speak up for what's right? Is it appropriate at all times to do this? I mean, this teacher was not advocating for the Nazis. This was what I would consider a creative, if somewhat difficult and possibly painful, school assignment. I don't know, but I'd like to see it talked about more, because I think the interpretation of it was a little too straightforward. I don't know.
Timely, because the teacher may have intended to discuss this so that students would be able to recognize the language we use to justify scapegoating a group of people, because we continue to see that kind of language today. So it is an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to discuss in this book. So I'd hate to see it just, I'd hate to see a totally shallow interpretation of this, which some of the reviews I thought seemed to write it off prematurely. Okay, let's go on to the tragic teddy bears. Oh, and the oppressed city. A Wish in the Dark. I thought this was just a lovely book. It's a Thai-based fantasy set in the city of Chathana. That's you know, you can see it glittering on the cover of the book. The lights in Chathana are the work of their oppressive, power-obsessed governor who has magical powers, who showed up after Chathana's great fire, promising everybody peace, order, prosperity, and a wonderful life. Well, the main character of the book is named Pong. He's a young kid who was born in the prison and has always wanted to go to the city and walk through these beautifully lit streets. He escapes from prison. He's relentlessly pursued by the daughter of the prison warden, who feels that an escapee is humiliating to her family. But the point is he gets into the city of Chathana, he discovers that it's not what he thought. It's like the prison. There are still oppressed minorities. There are socioeconomic groups that are struggling and that really have no share in any of the prosperity of the city. So he eventually inspires a revolution. And the story of the book is pretty much based on Les Miserables. But it's a lovely book with a kind of an eerie, magical setting. I loved it. Who wants to do, oh, Erin, you've got those tragic teddy bears.
I do have the tragic teddy bears. So they threw us away. You meet Buddy, who is a Furrington teddy, and he kind of wakes up in a landfill and doesn't know how he got there because he was on a store shelf. And as he makes his way out of his box, he notices that there are other Farmington. When you meet Horace and Sugar and Sonny and Reginald, and they face terrors at this landfill of, you know, gulls attacking them, rats, bulldozers, and they're trying to escape and find a child who will love them, who will give them a hug so that they can have what they really want, which is their forever sleep. So they make a plan to leave the landfill and go on this adventure. It is descriptive and dark. They end up finding a toy store in which they see that other Furrington teddies have been destroyed, and there's a manager who might have seen them but ends up balling up and crying and saying, "Why did you do it, you dumb teddy bears?" And you're like, what did they do? And you also hear of course, while I'm actually presenting. Sorry about that. And then you also hear a backstory from Reginald about the Furrington teddies kind of creation of Mother and Prolo? I can't remember the name, but it's going to be a trilogy. It's kind of a dark toy story of toys coming to life, but seeking children who would love them, but there's something off and we don't quite yet know what it is.
I'll tell you, Forever Sleep bothered me. I've been looking at stuffed animals ever since and thinking, oh God, you know, are they in forever sleep?
And the writing is so descriptive. I mean, reading about these teddy bears trying to escape the slimy dump. I mean, I felt like I had to take a shower after reading some of the passages.
You also get really scared of seagulls.
Oh, yeah.
I'm already scared of seagulls.
It'd be even worse if you were a teddy bear.
It's so true.
Okay, troubles. Tune it out, Sasha.
All right, so this is the story of Lou Montgomery, who loves to sing, but she doesn't love loud noises, large crowds, and the chaos that often surrounds performing for the public. Lou complaints fall on deaf ears as her overbearing mother pushes her to become a star. Lou's mom's overbearing personality isn't the only strike that she has against her. A snowy car crash results in Lou being removed from her mom's custody in Utah and sent to Nashville to live with a wealthy aunt and uncle that she barely knows. After the move, Lou is enrolled in the prep school where her uncle is a teacher, and she feels very alone and scared. With the help of a school social worker, Lou discovers she has a sensory processing disorder, and she learns strategies to make an overwhelming world less so. Armed with new friends, family, and self-confidence, Lou must make a life-changing decision that will affect both her and her mom. Tune It Out is the perfect read for fans who gobble up stories of resilience, differences, friendship, and music. I really loved this book. I thought it covered a whole bunch of bases. It introduced kids that might not know what a sensory processing disorder is. Anybody else have anything they want to add?
Yeah, Sasha, I think this book, like several that we've seen, suffers from the cover. The cover looks much younger and sillier than the book actually is. There's a lot to this story.
Yeah, I agree.
Tornado Brain? That's yours, Charlie.
Tornado Brain. Yeah, Tornado Brain introduces us to Frankie. And Frankie has a tough go at it. Frankie is neurodivergent. So she doesn't like loud noises. She doesn't like to be touched. She's often forgetful. Her one bright spot is her best friend from kindergarten, Colette. Well, it's middle school, and they have a misunderstanding, and they break up. And then the unthinkable happens, and Colette disappears. No one has seen her. They don't know where she went. Police are investigating. And Frankie suddenly believes that Colette has left clues behind. And so Frances recruits her twin sister, Tess, to try to solve this mystery. Did Colette send clues to them via text? And what does it all mean? And where is Colette? And can they save her? So it's a story that is about relationships, but it's also a mystery. And I think the two are intertwined pretty well.
Notice that I'm not talking.
Yeah.
How about A Home for Goddesses and Dogs? That's yours, Kate.
Yes. Well, if you read Mason Buttle, or The Truth About Mason Buttle, so you know Leslie Connor, this is her next book. And like Mason Buttle, it is it's a heartbreaker and a tearjerker, and just so warm and lovely and filled with goodness. I just loved all the characters were just very loving. Almost all of the characters were very loving, but it was just a sweet, gentle story where, yeah, her mom died and her dad had left the family a couple of years before, but she, the young woman, Lydia, moves in with her aunt and her aunt's wife, and has to start anew. Let's see. They adopt a shelter dog, which she wasn't really interested in a shelter dog, but that provides a lot of the love in the story. She has this art project that she used to do with her mother of building these goddesses of strong women, and that plays a major role in the book. And it's just such a sweet book and really would appeal, I think, mostly to girls, but to all the ages in our group. So I'm glad that we maintained it for the B list.
And I feel the same way about A Game of Fox and Squirrels, which is a fantastical, eerie book about kids dealing with family abuse. The two main characters are Sam, who's 11, and her big sister, Caitlin. They've been in a bad situation at home. They've been taken away and sent to live with their Aunt Vicky in Oregon, and Aunt Vicky's wife, Hannah. And Caitlin is relieved and happy. You know, she's just fine with living with these aunts. Sam, who's in denial about the whole thing, just wants to get back to her parents. And then Vicky gives Sam a card game, The Game of Fox and Squirrels, which eerily comes alive. And a main character in the card game is the fox, Ashlander. And at first, he's fascinating. And then as the story progresses, it's clear that Ashlander is abusive. I mean, you know, he becomes increasingly cruel and frightening. And, you know, with these, Sam has to figure out how to cope with all this and how to interpret this in terms of her own life. I thought it was just a wonderful example of how traumatic truths are sometimes best dealt with through fiction. And I'm glad it made the B list, sort of.
Oh, am I the last one?
Yes, you are, and we are on time and everything.
Look at this. Well, this one will be short. So this is the first book that I can remember being set in modern day Nigeria of you know, any middle grade book I've read. I don't know if anybody can think of anything, but I love that it was set in Africa and that it was set in modern day. And so my little short blurb is: father killed by gang and son receives a mysterious gift that gives him Hulk-like powers. Will he learn to control them for good? So the book is firmly rooted in Nigeria and Nigerian culture. There's a great deal of fantasy and superpowers and a mystery to be solved. So it was fantastical, but the characters you could really root for. So this has been flying off the library for us. I don't know about other libraries, but just very different than a lot of books that I've read.
And I think boys will love this.
Yes.
You know, if A Home for Goddesses and Dogs leans toward girls, Ikenga leads toward boys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness, look at this. We could have done more B books, guys.
Speaking, Becky, maybe you want to talk about the handbook a little bit too. About the handbook. About resources.
The handbook. The handbook, is it available now? The handbook is written up each year to accompany all of the books on the A list. It includes a summary of the book. It includes discussion questions for the book, lists of multidisciplinary connections where appropriate. And what we always struggle with, if you liked this book, you might like an associated list of books. So there's a lot to the handbook. And if you've got a class, a book group, a book club, a family who's reading these books together, it's a great accompaniment, and it gives it expands upon the books considerably. Anybody else got anything on those?
Yeah, we had a little bit of conversation in the chat before about grade level distinguishments that and I didn't know if we wanted to talk for a few minutes about the discussion that we do as a group when we are trying to figure out what grade levels to recommend.
You know, usually with grade levels, we use a lot of references. We go to the school library journal. We check out Amazon. We check out Common Sense books. And we talk back and usually we go by a consensus. Often we agree with their rulings. Occasionally we don't. I think sometimes they tend to run, the recommendations run a little young. I mean, I've seen some of the books on our list where they'll say 3rd grade and up, and I think, I don't think 3rd grade would work for some of this. Everyone, thank you so very much for coming to listen to us babble on about our books, which we love doing. I kind of thought this time, since this is our very first conference as the Golden Dome Reading Committee, that we should have all had little gold painted hard hats.
Like Devo.
Yeah, so maybe,
Devo, yeah.
maybe next time.
Well, I thank you all so much. You did a fantastic job. I have many books added to my list that I need to check out. So that is really exciting. We appreciate all of your hard work. It is an incredible amount of time and energy and everything else to read through these books and to have these discussions, which I know are challenging and get even heated sometimes, I would say, perhaps. And but it's important, and we really appreciate it, and we know that the community, the library community, schools, everyone really relies on these lists, and it's really fantastic work that you're all doing. So we appreciate you.
We appreciate you guys.
And so we are going to take a break for 10 minutes, and we're going to get Dr. Jewel Parker Rhodes all set up. She's going to be presenting in 10 minutes, so please stick around. It's going to be fantastic. Take a little break, and please join us again at 12 o'clock sharp.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.